Let me say something that most personal finance content gets completely wrong. Debt is not the enemy. I know that sounds backwards, especially if you've been told your whole life that debt is dangerous, that credit cards are traps, that owing anyone anything is a sign you're losing financially. But that framing, debt equals bad, is one of the most expensive misconceptions in personal finance, because it treats all debt the same, and all debt is absolutely not the same. Some debt has made ordinary people millionaires. Some debt has financially destroyed people who earn six figures. The difference between those two outcomes is not the amount borrowed. It is the type of debt, what it's attached to, and whether the person holding it understands the difference. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly what separates good debt from the debt that quietly ruins your financial life. Not with vague categories, but with real numbers, real examples, and a clear framework you can apply to every borrowing decision you will ever make. My name is Reid, and I'm a financial educator who focuses on making the mechanics of personal finance actually make sense for regular people. And this topic, debt, is one where I see more confusion than almost anything else. People carrying debt they should eliminate immediately because they think it's fine. People avoiding debt they should be using aggressively because they think all borrowing is reckless. Both mistakes cost real money. Both are completely avoidable once you understand what you're actually dealing with. So let's build that understanding right now. Here's the core concept that changes how you see debt forever. Debt is a tool. Like any tool, what matters is not whether you use it, it's what you use it on. A hammer builds a house. A hammer also breaks a window. The hammer is not the problem. The application is. Good debt is debt that either grows your net worth over time, generates income that exceeds the cost of the debt, or acquires an asset that appreciates faster than the interest you're paying. The debt is working for you. The interest you pay is an operating cost on something that's producing a return. Destructive debt is debt tied to things that lose value the moment you acquire them, or debt used to fund a lifestyle you cannot actually afford. The interest you pay produces nothing. It is a pure cost with no return on the other side. Let me put real numbers on both sides of this so it's not abstract. Say you take out a $300,000 mortgage at 7% interest on a home. Over 30 years, your total interest paid is roughly $418,000. That sounds terrifying. But that same home, appreciating at the historical US average of 4% per year, is worth approximately $973,000 in 30 years. You borrowed $300,000, paid $418,000 in interest, and ended up with a $973,000 asset you would not otherwise own. The debt created nearly $1 million in wealth. Now take a different scenario. Someone puts $15,000 on a credit card at 24% interest, the current US average for cards that carry a balance, and makes the minimum payment each month. At minimum payments, that $15,000 takes over 40 years to pay off and costs more than $43,000 in interest. They borrowed $15,000, paid back nearly $58,000 total, and have nothing to show for it because the purchases depreciated to zero within months of buying them. Same concept, borrowing money, completely opposite financial outcomes. That is the difference between good debt and debt that destroys you, and the line between them is more specific than most people realize. Let me break down the actual categories so this is completely clear. Debt that builds, the good side. A mortgage on a primary residence or investment property is the most widely used form of good debt in America. You are using borrowed money to acquire an asset that historically appreciates over time and, in the case of a rental property, generates cash flow that can service the debt itself. The interest is also tax deductible in many situations, which reduces the real cost of borrowing even further. Student loans, and I want to be careful here because this one has nuance, can be good debt when the degree has a clear, measurable income premium that exceeds the total cost of the loan plus interest. A nursing degree that costs $40,000 and increases your annual income by $30,000 is good debt. A $120,000 degree in a field where starting salaries average $38,000 is not. The test is always, does the return exceed the cost and by how much and over what time frame? Business loans used to generate revenue are good debt when the business produces more than the interest costs. If you borrow $50,000 at 8% interest to fund a business that generates $80,000 in profit, you are using $4,000 a year in interest to produce $80,000 in return. That is leverage working exactly as it's supposed to. Low-interest auto loans in specific situations can be good debt. If a lender offers you 0% financing and you have cash that is earning 5% in a high-yield savings account or more in investments, taking the 0% loan and keeping your cash invested is mathematically correct. You are earning a return on money you would otherwise have spent. This only works when the rate is genuinely low, 0 to 3%, and you have the discipline not to spend the cash you kept. Debt that destroys the other side. Credit card debt at 20 to 29% interest is almost never justifiable as a financial strategy. There is no legal accessible investment on earth that reliably returns 24% annually. which means carrying a credit card balance is a guaranteed negative return on every dollar that sits there. Every day you carry a balance, you are losing money at a rate that would impress a loan shark. Buy now, pay later services are the credit card problem repackaged with better branding. The zero interest promotional periods are real. The 30 to 40% penalty rates that kick in the moment you miss a payment or the period expires are equally real. These products are engineered to feel painless going in and become expensive on the back end. Personal loans used for vacations, weddings, or consumer goods are destructive debt. A vacation has a lifespan of 1 to 2 weeks. The loan payment lasts 2 to 5 years. You are paying premium prices on a depreciating experience long after the experience itself is gone. A wedding financed on credit is a marriage that starts with a financial anchor already attached. Car loans at high interest rates for vehicles you cannot actually afford are one of the most common ways people keep themselves from building wealth. A car loses 20% of its value in the first year and 60% over 5 years. Financing that depreciation at 9 or 10% interest is one of the most reliably wealth-destroying decisions in personal finance. And payday loans, 300 to 400% annualized interest rates, are financial quicksand. The structure is designed so that paying off the loan in full is difficult by design. Each rollover deepens the hole. There is no scenario in which a payday loan improves your financial position. Here is the framework and the action steps. Work through these in order. Step 1. List every debt you currently carry and assign it a rate. Write down every debt: mortgage, car, student loans, credit cards, personal loans, medical debt, buy now, pay later balances, anything. Next to each one, write the interest rate. This is your debt map, and most people have never actually looked at all of it in one place. This step alone changes your relationship to your debt because it forces you to see it clearly instead of feeling it vaguely. Step 2. Separate the list by rate. Everything above 7% interest should be treated as destructive debt and eliminated as aggressively as your budget allows, regardless of what it was originally used for. At 7% and above, the cost of carrying the balance almost always exceeds any realistic return you could earn elsewhere. Everything below 4% interest should generally be maintained as scheduled, while you direct extra money toward investments that can reasonably outperform that rate. The S&P 500 has historically averaged 10% annually. Paying off a 3% mortgage early instead of investing the extra cash is often the mathematically inferior choice. The 4 to 7% range is judgment territory. It depends on your risk tolerance, how close you are to retirement, and whether having the debt eliminated provides psychological value. Both choices can be correct in this range. Step 3. Stop adding to the destructive side. If you are carrying credit card balances, cut your cards to one with the lowest rate and use it only for purchases you can pay in full at the end of the month. The moment you carry a balance, you lose the rewards, the cashback, and every other benefit, and you're paying 24% for the privilege. If you are using buy now, pay later services frequently, stop. Not because the concept is always wrong, but because the behavior pattern it creates, buying things you cannot afford in cash and spreading the cost forward, is the exact habit that keeps people broke regardless of income. Step 4. Use good debt intentionally, not by default. If you are considering a mortgage, run the true cost of ownership against what you would pay to rent a comparable property. If ownership costs are significantly higher than renting, the math may not support buying right now. Good debt is still a decision, not a default. If you are considering a business loan or investment property loan, model the return conservatively, not the best case, the realistic case. If the realistic case still exceeds the interest rate by a meaningful margin, the debt is working for you. If you have to be optimistic to make the numbers work, that is a warning sign. Step 5. Build the buffer that keeps you off destructive debt. The reason most people end up on the destructive side of debt is not poor discipline. It is that they have no financial cushion, and an unexpected expense forces them to put something on a card they can't immediately pay off. A 3 to 6 month emergency fund in a high-yield savings account is not just a safety net, it is the single most effective tool for keeping you off high-interest debt permanently. When the car breaks down, when the medical bill arrives, when you lose a client, the emergency fund handles it. The credit card doesn't need to. If you don't have that cushion yet, building it comes before almost every other financial move on this list. Here's what I want you to walk away with. Debt is not a moral failure, and it is not a financial death sentence. It is a mechanism. It can work powerfully in your favor, or it can work powerfully against you. And the outcome depends entirely on understanding which side of the line each dollar of debt sits on. Good debt acquires assets that grow. It funds returns that exceed its cost. It uses other people's money to build your own position. The wealthiest people in the world use debt as a tool constantly. Mortgages, business credit lines, investment financing. They are not debt-free, they are debt-smart. Destructive debt funds things that disappear. It attaches interest costs to purchases that lose value immediately and provides no return. It grows silently in the background, compounding against you every single month, making it harder to build wealth no matter how much you earn. Making it harder to build wealth no matter how much you earn. The framework is simple. Every time you consider borrowing money, ask one question. Is this debt attached to something that will be worth more than the total cost of the debt when it's done, or less? If the answer is more, it may be good debt worth using. If the answer is less, it is destructive debt worth avoiding or eliminating as fast as possible. That one question, applied consistently, will do more for your financial life than almost any other habit you could build. I'm Carter Reid. I'm rooting for you, and I'll see you in the next one.